we are in a situation where at least we can hope for a revitalization of the relations, especially after the very bumpy, let's say, road that was taken in 2020. However, of course, when we look at the conclusions of the statement after the March 25 European Council, we hear the positive measures which were again based on conditions related with the Eastern Mediterranean, and we also see that the EU is happy to support, continue to support Syrians in Turkey. However, we don't see any reference to Turkey's candidacy status. There is no reference to Turkey as a candidate state. There is no reference to the accession negotiations. So it seems that what the EU has in mind is to make a transition towards a new relationship with Turkey. So recalibrating the relationship from the perspective of membership to a partnership model. This was, again, as we may all know, was on the agenda even before the start of the negotiations in the form of privileged partnership and then strategic partnership. However, none of these alternative models, let's say, for Turkey relations have been very credible. I mean, how Turkey-EU relations can fit into this new framework is questionable. So I think maybe one thing we should clear is Turkey's candidacy status. It is still ongoing, but there is, in general, there is such an attitude that it is as if it does not exist, this candidacy status. So on the one hand, of course, we could conclude that Turkey as a candidate state should engage in reforms, again, especially in the areas of democracy, human rights, and rule of law. So this is, of course, I think something that we should all accept. But other than that, of course, the failure of the accession process so far is not only due to Turkey, but also due to the problems inherent in the accession process and the vetoes which have been applied to suspend certain parts of the accession negotiations. So it's not only up to Turkey that this has failed so far. So I think we shouldn't think that the accession process is not the most viable framework still for Turkey relations, because just due to the fact that we don't have anything else to replace it. I mean, what we have had so far since the sort of suspension of the, or de facto suspension of the accession negotiations was a deterioration of the relations and the sort of transition to a conflictual relationship. So now we are trying to maybe, and the EU is trying to re-engage with Turkey on the basis of the positive agenda, but it is still very fragile because we no longer have this accession framework, the credibility of the accession framework. And I think this is very important. Of course, at the moment, maybe it's very, it seems very sort of difficult to think of Turkey's accession to the EU, not only because Turkey, but also because the EU is also now approaching the issue of enlargement very cautiously, not only Turkey, but also for the other candidates, and also due to the other conditions, COVID-19 and the internal crises of the EU, then it seems a bit difficult. But still, I think as an ultimate perspective, maybe not in the short run, but when conditions are ripe or when the circumstances are more, let's say, appropriate, then we should keep this perspective. And until then, maybe we should try to let's say, contribute to Turkey's further convergence to the European Union. And there, I think the customs union modernization process can be very valuable in order to revitalize the relations and also to, let's say, bring the two components of the relations together, the interest component and the value component, because I think you cannot really base the relationship solely on interest. You have to also have a combination of interests and values, because they cannot really be thought separately. I think they are all connected. So I think if we can start the customs union modernization, at least we will have a chance to rebuild trust and the spirit of cooperation between Turkey and the European Union, and presenting further conditions for the start of the customs union modernization will not help and will postpone the revitalization of the process. So I think the most, let's say, realistic option that we have for the future of the relations in the short run is a modernization of the customs union. However, this should not be the end itself, nor should it be the sort of the nucleus of a new relationship. I think this should be a more pragmatic solution found to the impasse at the moment, with the still final goal of full membership. And I think evading this goal, acting as if Turkey is not a candidate country, let's say creating a certain constructive ambiguity in the relationship will not help, because Turkey, although the negotiations are not continuing, is still a formal candidate. So we should, I think, accept this, and we should, based on the present difficulties, we should look at what we can do under the circumstances in order to create the best, let's say, possibility for a reconvergence in the relationship. And the second point I would like to raise is the point of time that we are at the moment. I mean, we are going through a pandemic, and which is really creating a very difficult situation, and it also is creating new challenges for economies in terms of technology, in terms of education, in terms of employment, in all areas of life. So I think this is a point in time where we are seeing a real transition in world economy and society, and this also necessitates much closer cooperation between Turkey and the European Union. Especially, there are two important areas I think maybe we should focus more on. One is the Green Deal that the EU is engaged, and I want to underline that it is not the EU Green Deal, but it is the European Green Deal. So Turkey's, let's say, convergence to these changes with regard to the climate change goals, I think, is needed, and for Europe to succeed, to be the first continent, let's say, climate neutral continent, I think depends also on the building of a mutually beneficial and cooperative relationship also in this area. And the second area where I think we should see more cooperation between the parties is the digital agenda, which is also one of the priorities of the EU. And these are, I think, two extremely important issues where Turkey and the EU should engage more. And political problems and the recent tension in the Eastern Mediterranean and other issues have maybe prevented working together between Turkey and the European Union. But I think these two issues and the extreme, let's say, challenge posed by this transition process, I think, may create a certain vantage point to start the revitalization process. So let me stop here for the moment, and thank you very much again.